you getting on? Welcome to the Savor Success podcast. This is episode 6, and I'm your host, Caelan Cullen. Can you believe we've made it past 5 already? And I'm absolutely thrilled to have a real alcohol visionary on the show today. Someone who is bringing fresh innovation to an age-old industry, Mark Kavanagh. Mark is the founder of Wexbury Spirits, an alcohol company whose ethos revolves around the culture of Wexford and the iconic Wexford strawberry. Starting out as a young lad selling strawberries from a cart on the side of the road, he's now grown his business into a globally ambitious spirit company driven by his passion for his hometown. In this episode, we dive into Mark's early entrepreneurial days, his love for his homegrown life, product innovation, thinking outside the box, the persistence that it takes to succeed, and also putting community and culture into every single bottle. So without further ado, here's my chat with the main man himself, Mark Kavanagh of Wexbury Spirits. Let's go. Okay, everyone, I'm delighted to have on today Mark Kavanagh, the founder of Wexbury Spirits. Mark and I have been chatting for the last couple of weeks, and I'm delighted to have him on today. So, Mark, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
No problem at all. Delighted to be here.
It's class. We were just discussing there, Mark apparently and myself have known each other for coming on maybe 6 years now. Apparently I met him there when I was part of Arctic Stone, offered him a job, and we just found out that connection there. So apparently we go way back, a lot further than I thought. But Mark, I've been a big fan of what you've been doing at Wexbury Spirits the last couple of years. Been keeping a close eye on the journey, the products, and I just love the innovation, the initiative that you guys took. So I wanted to bring you on to tell your story. So let's start with that. Let's start with the Mark Kavanagh story and how you came up with the idea for Wexbury Spirits.
It sounds almost scarily simple in some ways. I always start this story with like the beginning of every good alcoholic drink story. It starts when I was 13. I began I suppose you could say, in the fancy words, of the whole entrepreneurial journey when I was 13 years old, and I borrowed my father's rusty single axle tool trailer, bought a single tray of strawberries and sat out on the side of the road and decided, right, this is what I'm going to do now. This is how I'm going to fill out the summers. And I suppose gradually over time, like, you realize you need more than a side of a trailer and a tray of strawberries. You need a few signs. You might need a few bottles of apple juice or even raspberries. Or I started selling my own hen eggs, whatever, at different stages. But what really, I suppose, is where the story of it all begins is that we went, I suppose, locally famous initially for, I was kind of straight across the road from our biggest competitors, who were like, huge white shipping containers with signs 2 miles up and down the road. And here's me now in my great aunt's driveway across the way trying to compete. And I was getting annoyed one day. I saw the cars. I was thinking, all right, I'll get this side of the road, they'll get that side of the road. And even cars on this side pulling in to go in, because obviously bigger setup, better experience, whatever. And mightn't even know I was there. So what I did was, I didn't have money for signs. I didn't have any notion in my head around marketing or.
And you were only 13 at the time?
13. And nice. I put up I got an old whiteboard, cracked whiteboard belonging to my father, who's an ex-teacher, and I wrote, "Support the small man," in a big or permanent marker, little strawberry on it. And I went out and I put it straight across the road from the lads, and I business tripled within like 2 weeks, and I got going. And within the first summer, I think I used the money I reinvested. I got a proper little strawberry trailer, called it Mark's Market. That was fun. And what really was the big success of that was, we ran that for 7 years. I got 2 different strawberry stalls going. I was paying young lads to stay out of school from TY while I was doing my leaving cert, to make sure we got a good start to the summer. But there was the one sign that took off out of all the funny ones we tried to come up with, was 100% orgasmic Wexford berries. And that was just like shocking to people. They were like pulling over trying to tell me there's no such thing as organic strawberries. And I was like, yeah, and I don't think it says that. And then for the next people they're pulling in, it's like, oh, is that guaranteed now? Wink, wink. And I was like 17. I didn't know what to say. There was no extra service on the side of the road anyway, let me tell you. But it was the whole fun factor between people having that engagement with me being the person behind it, and a bit of crack, and that sign went nationally viral. We got the Independent, Newstalk, Today FM, Beat down here, Southeast Radio, calling me on the side of the road. This is the chap selling orgasmic strawberries. And that was the whole fun factor of where the whole kind of good feel came from. So I suppose from the little bit of success we had with the signs, like we came,
don't you? Orgasmic.
we bring it out for the odd owl occasion, just as a little kind of a nod to the past. Let's say it always gets a laugh, and that's the main thing. But like effectively, what went on was I did that for a number of years, and I had loads of different mini businesses there. Whether it was like I used to wood turn pens, I used to buy and sell a few young racehorses, and because like my family are into that, so like I always had little side hustles on the go. I used to sell helium balloons of all things. Anything that was going at all was always of an interest.
A true entrepreneur right there.
Well, this was all before I did my leaving cert,
Yeah.
like that was, and the leaving cert hindered it all. So I went and because of the little bit of marketing success, I went to college to do my degree in marketing practice, and I did my first two. Like, I wouldn't be an academic by any means now, but I'd say it took me till third year to really start to figure out like the enjoyment and the value added that I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
And I really clicked into the whole academic side when I could see the value exchange. It wasn't just about the theory of anything anymore. It was the real, how do I put it? I suppose I could see it was all very practical. That's what I loved doing. So it was all exactly what drove me really towards the whole, again, getting serious about getting your own business together. And in the last 2 weeks before I finished my degree, COVID hit. And I mean on the day, on the exact moment. It was 1 hour when everyone was looking at each other in college, getting these leaked messages from Trinity that they were closing down or whatever was going on. And sure, if they were closing down, that definitely means we're closing down. And I was looking at my lecturers, and they were just whispering and didn't know what to do or say. No one knew what was going on and how we were going to finish out the end of the year with exams or anything like that and projects. And they, in the midst of, we're closing down, just go home today and sure, we'll take a few weeks, do whatever. We all thought it was a few weeks. And one of my lecturers told me, he was like, I'm going to go buy gold. Or Lutter, like, I don't think he did in the end, but effectively, he said that, because the economy is going to slow down now because everyone has to stay at home and do whatever, that inflation will rise and gold will go up. And he was getting all serious about this. And then I was thinking, like, Jesus Christ, I need to buy gold, but I'm a college student. I have no money to buy gold. So I went into, now I'd never be like this. I went into like a panic mode for an hour. I was walking out of college, through up to like our friend's dorm room and on campus. I was pacing in a sweat thinking, what am I going to do? I'm a marketing graduate going into a potential recession. Like, I need to get my crap in order here. Yeah. And it took me 15 minutes to sit down, settle myself, and I just took out my phone and I Googled businesses that thrive during recessions. And what came out of that Google search was tobacco, chocolate, alcohol, and wedding planners. Now, my mother, straight across the yard here, has the largest wedding dress showroom in Ireland. And I didn't fancy being the next Gokwan of Wexford. So I rewound it there to alcohol, because it was actually funny enough, towards the end stages of doing the strawberries, I started to use I was so sick of making jam, and I had so much frozen berries that I started just cutting them up with the sugar and infusing them into vodka. Because like our family, like, would have had a tradition of like, I suppose, making slow gin and stuff like that. So I had loads of strawberries, and I said, right, screw it, just use them up, don't let them go to waste. And it made a lovely product at the time, years and years ago, but I never thought about like, how do you ever get into commercially making that? I never even considered it. But at that moment, it wasn't a case of, right, we'll look into it, I'll think about it, or I'll do my research. I knew at that moment, right there, right then, I had to go make the strawberry vodka. And it wasn't, I think I operated very differently from a lot of people in the food industry, because a lot of people start with let's say, this phenomenal food product that they can make, and then they're like, okay, right, how do we scale, commercialize it, and market it, brand it, etc., do whatever. And so they start with the product, and then they figure out the rest afterwards. Whereas at that moment, I didn't think about, right, how much sugar do I need in the strawberry vodka? It was about, I knew how I could market my story of support the small man and the crack and the history and the provenance of Wexford strawberries into something that I could direct to consumers and make it about them and their history, their heritage, and being able to, that's the key, I suppose. That took a little bit more time to develop, but in general, it was about how we could sell the brand that was already so well established in Ireland, which was Wexford strawberries, and spin it that way. But I quite literally went home from college and I went into Wexford strawberries weren't out yet, so I bought 8 bags of frozen strawberries out of Aldi. I went in with my 14-year-old brother at the time. No, not, there were 10-year-old. I was 20, and my 10-year-old brother buying 40 bottles of vodka out of Aldi with I don't know, God knows how many bags of strawberries and X amount of bags of sugar. And I got onto Dundeal and I found a fella that had 8 vintage demijohns, like big glass, like canisters that like some people might make beer out of, but like I just got new rubber plugs for them and I started experimenting different sugars, different amounts of strawberries. Like I did that for months, going through the phases of it all until someone's just like, you need a food technologist. It's like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna make it consistent, you're gonna make it commercial. And it was the best thing we ever did because there's so many nuances behind it, between shelf life testing, between color, between mouthfeel, that you just need to keep 100% consistent. Like I had a notion here. I was getting a stainless. I actually had the stainless steel. I had the stainless steel when I was going to be like, right, we're going to put a mixer, an ATEC mixer, because it's alcohol or whatever that the grade is for working with alcohol and electronics. And we're going to make this with the strawberries, the vodka, the sugar in it, and let's leave it for a few months and then we'll bottle it. That was the idea. And here we are 4 years later, and it couldn't be any further from anything that we ever thought was what was actually going to come to play. So it's we got going with the vodka within the space of, I'd say, maybe, a year and a half. You think it's going to take you 6 months and it always drags out and it always takes longer. It's basic. Looking back on it now, you think, like, at the time it was just trying to climb a mountain blindfolded, because I'd never gone looking for business bank accounts from banks. I've never gone looking for to be registered for VAT. I've never had to have the discipline of doing your VAT every month. And it's kind of, when you do that for a certain amount of years and you look back on it now, all that stuff is easy. It's actually just having the little bit, I suppose, business muscle memory that, like if we needed to set up a company in the morning, we'd know exactly how to do it, exactly how to register, go about doing it, and it'd be so efficient because we've been there, done that.
Yeah.
So like now, like, yeah, it was a learning process, but I think it was some of the best time I've probably ever spent from an educational point of view. Even I went on to, at that time, for that year we were developing the whole idea, I started doing a master's in marketing and retail innovation in Smurfit. So I did my master's as I was developing it, but I also had access to some of the best marketing minds in the country, who were in the middle of class. They were like, so if you applied that to the alcohol industry now, and they knew exactly, because they're getting €500 an hour to talk to people like me, and I had them in class. But they were very good to me. I owe them a lot because they let me do all my project work around my own company. So that was a rarity for them. They loved saying it, and like I'd like to think that they can see that I definitely tried my best with it. It wasn't an excuse. It was something that was genuinely going to happen. So
Yeah.
that was some of the toughest times, but actually also most beneficial, I suppose, personally, was just learning the ins and outs of it all, and especially like how to go about doing certain things. You just get sharper.
It's interesting because a lot of people, you kind of mentioned it earlier, come from a food background, whether they were chefs, whether they were culinary innovators in college or anything like that. And my background was a bit in food and chefing and stuff like that. But you come from a marketing perspective. It kind of reminds me of Liquid Death. He had no idea about food products really. He just knew marketing really well. Next question for yourself, Mark, is vodka. Everyone thinks of Irish products, whiskey, obviously, but that takes so long. Gin, like strawberry gin was there on the cusp of you grasping, right? You went for vodka. Ireland's not really known for vodka. So tell me a little bit about that, because your products are very unique, which I love to see.
Well, look, we had it gets pretty I suppose, black and white really quickly. Like, we had advisors there for years telling us we had to do a gin at some point, and like, again, sure, like, we needed to do a whiskey on the side as well, and then there was 3 different SKUs of the vodkas that also had to be done, and like, you kind of spent a year and a half there, maybe 2 years, kind of like, oh, it's all coming, and you try and do different SKUs, but like, when you I like to try and break down things for what they are, what the reality is, rather than what the emotion is kind of telling me. I'd often kind of say that, like, you want to avoid your, as much as I value my gut instinct, there's a lot of times when you're trying to deal with a different animal that a little bit of advice from the right people at the right time brings you miles ahead and avoids a lot of mistakes. So I was just extremely lucky that I've had so many people along the way that have given us their time, their expertise. But I think that would have never happened unless we were able to show them that we were serious about what we were doing. Loads of people have food company ideas, they have drinks company ideas, but actually have the persistence to pull through them. I can understand why they probably initially, like, I just, as I said, didn't take us seriously in the beginning, but now there are suppliers, there are wholesalers, there are all the people who said, sure, this could never really follow through of being a success. And thankfully, I think one of the best things we did was focus on Wexford and made a proper success of that before we started going to 10 different wholesalers and 3 different European countries. It was I suppose it's a painful process when you're so small. And as I said, I'm living in a granny pad out here beside my parents' house still, so like it's a tough, slow process, but every single second of it, I have to say, is worth it. But the vodka question, that's really interesting because everybody, when I was, like, I suppose starting my degree, was like Ireland was a big gin craze.
Yeah.
And by the time the gin craze got going and everyone acknowledged it, there was about 25 companies that got into it. I would look at, like, their model was, right, gin is exploding, let's buy a still, let's set up a premises, get all the food things, let's hire people, and then, oh, what are we going to brand it now? And then you're on the back foot because you're already after investing millions in something to facilitate the sale of something you don't know is going to sell or not. So we've outsourced our production from the beginning, whether it's the processing of the strawberries or the bottling or anything else. But ultimately, I saw that kind of coming, that a lot of people don't realize that gin, in my mind anyway, is just complicated vodka. It's the exact same base. It's the exact same base, and people don't like to acknowledge it. That, oh, they're like, vodka doesn't agree with me, but I like gin. It's a load of rot because it's the exact same stuff. I mean, the exact same. So, like, yes, there's different grades between, like, spirit, potato neutral spirit, wheat neutral spirit, which is like Grey Goose standard vodka. But we just said, right, if we're going about selling this idea of taste of Wexford strawberries, and that whole authentic line of is the fresh taste of Wexford strawberries. That's everything Wexbury is about. Is getting that, like, there's strawberry and there's baked strawberry and then there's, like, kind of gone offish kind of strawberry, and it's like, how do you get the fresh strawberry across? And involving juniper and botanicals in that whole conversation is just, in my mind, doesn't serve what we're about. So yeah, you can make a lovely strawberry gin, but if we're doing what we're doing, it's a neutral spirit. You communicate the flavors using the main character, which is the Wexford strawberry. So that was the original thought process, if that answers your question.
100%. So, like, you want to make an example of Wexford strawberry and really bring it to the forefront. With gin, as people know, the juniper berries and everything else that goes into the aromas will just take away from the strawberry. So that makes sense, and it's great to see such passion as a Wexford man. For our American listeners out there, Wexford strawberries are the best in the world. There's no two ways about it. Everyone in Ireland knows how good they are in Wexford. So
if any of your American listeners have a real Irish friend and you go and they're from Ireland and you ask them about Wexford strawberries, you will get told about them. That's how
for
you
sure.
know. Yeah.
For sure. We all talk about it out here as well. Whenever we're trying strawberries in the supermarket in America, they're all gack, and they should be Irish. They should be. If we can get Wexford strawberries to America, it will blow people's minds. So I wanted to talk, because you are such a proud Wexford man, and strawberries is such a component of, obviously, of Wexbury. How has the community in Wexford really helped you? Because it's such a big food culture in Wexford and that people don't see that often. How has the community helped you?
It's getting to the core of it all, really. Like, that question really hits home because that's what's made this successful.
Yeah.
Is that people get into this whole, I'm as guilty as anybody. When we started Wexbury as a brand, it was about the story of Mark Kavanagh chancing his arm with the funniness and the whole culture of Wexford strawberries. And then I started to realize that I just got into loads of different business books and about marketing strategy and understanding why different things work, understanding why they don't. And it was probably a decision that probably made even subconsciously that it was about, no, it was definitely a conscious decision that we decided, even in the midst of a whole new rebrand that we're pulling together at the moment, we were still making it about ourselves. And I just said, who cares? This isn't about me. This isn't about anybody. There should be no one's name plastered across this product as a vanity and ego project that is, again, look at my lovely little project and you should be interested. If you're making sort of a thing to sell to anybody, the story should always be about the person you're trying to sell to. Make them the main character of what's going on. That's the big change I feel that we're going forward at Wexbury, is that it's about the culture, the history, and the people of Wexford, and that's what everyone loved in the first place. So you keep that right, and all of a sudden, people don't say, "Oh, this is Mark Kavanagh stuff," which I don't want them to. They say, "This is stuff from my home country or county. This is a really, really big deal. This is me sharing part of my history, my culture with you." They own it. It's theirs. It's 100% their history, their culture, their everything. And that's the messaging that we like. That's what they use it for. That's the value when they spend their money to buy our products. That's what they get in return, is a true sense of, this is a part of who I am. Have a taste of that. Have a story about it. A history of Wexford strawberries. Like you're a mini historian. Who cares? It's all about them feeling that it's about them. And when you change the narrative on that equation, it's chalk and cheese. It's atmosphere in the universe stuff. It's just, that's the plan, and that's what's really, really hit the let's say the copper streak for us at the moment. And it's taken off by itself. It's people bring people to bars to have Wexbury because they're visiting whatever. Bartenders are like, if you're down, why? Sure, you can't leave without having a Wexford strawberries and cream. All the roads to Tralee landed into the middle of Wexford town, and within the first 10 seconds of stepping off the bus, they had a Wexford strawberries and cream milkshake in their hands. And because that was what the bartenders thought would be the most appropriate thing to give all the girls from all over the country when they come to Wexford. So if that's what we're after getting here locally, that's what we need to replicate almost everywhere else, in their own different ways. And like that's ultimately been the key to our success so far, which a lot of people, they're like, our brand, our history, our story. Maybe talk about your customers.
Yeah.
What's in it for them? Why should they care? Reset the narrative, and that took a long time to really fine tune and like reset, and like loads of consultants, because when you're in battle, like I have a master's in marketing and I have another guy who did a master's in digital marketing. We're looking back at each other with like super high end strategies, and it can get a little bit, even with advisors and different people and huge people advising us on it. When you're in battle, it's hard to see the wood from the trees. And sometimes it's the simplest, just basic, again, show your customers you care about them and then they'll care about you. But it's never a whole us story, because that doesn't work anymore.
I get you. So you want to try and represent the community as much as possible, the people to show pride in that they're giving a shot glass of Wexbury Spirits to the person beside them. Doesn't matter where it is, from America to Shanghai. You guys want to represent Wexford and the products that you guys are putting out, and really represent your community as much as possible.
Yeah, Wexford has made me who I am. From the as I said, the mammy's pulling over buying strawberries for me since I was 13 to uh like it from it's just me, as I said, it's everything. And I think that like it's for me to be able to kind of give back and weigh into that even is something that I just take a lot of pride in, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So that's that's what people see, and I think that's what really clicks, and that's the difference. You see, that's why, you know that's what Diageo can't create with their millions. They'll slap a cool brand and a cool bottle, but like relevance and authenticity is really difficult to fabricate. And I think that's like, again, if we ever did set out going into the future, like that's what they'll be buying, is something really cool and authentic. So Yeah.
The amount of entrepreneurs I talked to started off with the product and they were kind of making it about themselves. You were saying it was about the Mark Kavanagh story, but then they started realizing, listening to their customers, that it's about the community that they've created, the vibe that they're trying to bring out, the heritage, the culture that's being brought into the product as well. So I've seen you in places all over the world. Shanghai was one of them with Board Bia. I'd love to hear your thoughts on now after you've had a taste for a bit of international flair. What's your take on it?
I look, Borby have been phenomenal to me. I really have to give them a shout out because, like FoodWorks, we've been involved in loads of accelerator programs, mentorships, like for the last 4 years. And when I applied to do FoodWorks, I was kind of like, are we really up to that league? And in fairness, they probably let us in even on a few bases that like we didn't have all the boxes ticked, but at the same time they felt that there was something here to be trashed out. So I owe them an awful lot. They've mentored me and brought the company on years ahead of where it should be between marketing assistants, product assistants, even just putting you into that conversation. FoodWorks is like 8 superstar startup companies that they pick a year and they give that stamp of approval that these guys are either serious about what they do or they're trying their best to get to the next level. And it goes back to my original point at the beginning of the podcast. It's like people can only help you when they see you helping themselves, or when they see you helping yourself. And we had a lot of good progress to that point, but as soon as FoodWorks got involved with us, the whole game changed. Everything changed, and even our perspective from everyone else looking in, we're like, wow, it was all a lovely novelty project there until it all started getting serious.
Yeah.
So this is, as I said, I have a great relationship with the guys. We were on the London trip with them. I didn't go to Shanghai with FoodWorks. I just happened to touch base with the Shanghai team, who again, like, hugely helpful in regards to just properly understanding the Asian market. I can tell you that isn't easy. But again, as I said, by the time you go out and you find the two pubs in Shanghai with Guinness and you hear about the Shanghai GA teams, you start to hear for what it really is. And
Yeah.
that's the work in the yards that really kind of add value and that people don't see. They're like, oh, you're just going on a holiday there to Shanghai, but we went out to a trade show. We got our first orders for a product that we just, as I suppose, we didn't fully know was going to work in that market, and it was tested, and now we have a proper order for Asia on top of what we're doing in America. Wexford strawberries are going to 2 continents now by the end of next year, whether they like it or not, and that's just it.
Incredible. As something that started off as a project with your brother, your 10-year-old brother putting frozen strawberries in bottles from Aldi, to getting to international expansion. But that says a lot about your ambition, about how you view success, and how much you back the product as well. So international expansion is big on your list of things to get accomplished now over the next coming months.
Oh yeah, exactly. We'll never forget about Wexford because that's obviously everything we are. But the markets in the world, the populations in the world are just in different areas. So we have to go what was right for the business.
Yeah.
I don't think Wexford people will be too disappointed about. Will be. It'll still be in full flow here. It's just I'll be in different waters. All right.
I'm sure people love it when they're in from South Africa to Shanghai to South America somewhere, having a shot of Wexbury Spirits. You don't know where it came from. It came from a good place, but it's really interesting that you're going after the international market. A lot of people never even come to that idea. They think Ireland is great. I can just keep selling in Ireland, but I'm in New York here, and there's more people in Brooklyn and the Bronx than there is in the whole country of Ireland. We're only what 4.5, 5 million people. That's a small town in China or a town in America. The goal is to export as much as possible. So it's great to see that that is on the horizon for yourself.
It gets, you think, like, you try and stay humble and you're like, okay, let's maybe do Kilkenny, or let's do Galway, or let's, like, we do have like distributors who just wanted it and picked it up and are doing quite well, actually, like really surprisingly well in different cities that we never put any effort into because we just don't have the resources yet between everything that's going on. But like, if you go into what you learn really quickly is when you go into the meetings, the big meetings with the suppliers who like would supply us to our cream liqueur, and they're supplying Aldi Australia, like Target, Walmart, like crazy quantities of stuff for all over the place. And then when you know that they don't supply like almost one bottle to Ireland themselves, And if you start telling them the story about how you're going after this and that, it's like glass, like screeching to them. They don't want to hear it. And then you're like, okay, well, sure, we'll start talking about the other thing, and then you start talking and talking, and then you start meeting, and then talking again, and then it all becomes serious, and it all starts to happen, and now we have orders. So like, it's not for the sake of an email and a Zoom call. I was in on the ground in Savannah, Georgia, with Wexford Council, because again they saw I was trying my best. I wasn't promising them I was going to be exporting millions. I just said, this is a market we're very interested in and we'd like to avoid mistakes, and they really loved that. So we got out to Savannah, Georgia, we met the distributors, and as a result of that, backing from our local council and support from the Trade Bridge program, it changed everything in regards to the business model of the company. I was like, in fairness to Borbia, they'll give you all the documents, all the reports, all the growth figures from different markets. They were showing us that like flavored vodka in the States was growing, and this was a category worth exploring. And then as soon as I land on the ground in Georgia, the off-license managers, the owners, the distributors, the bar owners are all telling me flavored vodka does not sell. And then you're kind of like, are they being harsh about it? Like, are they really mean it? And then you go to I spent 8 days with the head sales rep of Savannah Distributing, going around just looking and meeting people, learning, and every bottle of flavored vodka had dust on it. It was so scary and such an awakening of, like, that's why a whole restructuring of our company at the moment is like leaving all that kind of like lovely, again, it was a lovely product with a cool story, but the whole business model of what we're doing going forward is completely different. And it's Irish strawberries and cream liqueur. And we'll always have the heritage of what we did, and we'll be, God knows what we could come out with the future, but we realized that there was no market for flavored vodka being exported and at the price that we had to sell it at because of the strawberries and fresh fruit we were using. So everything we just geared up at the moment now has been completely focused on what will work in America, and not what we like or think is good, or what, like, there's a business model behind it, there's a growth expansion model, and most importantly now, which is most exciting, people are looking at me like, what does this guy know about America? Been there a good few times, but even markets wise, now we have people involved in the company that have been there, done that, have products in the States for years, no distributors, no importers, been there, done that, help us through those contracts. That's what we need at the moment, as getting those kind of characters, again, been there, done that, in the realm of the greater project, is what's really driving us on at the moment. Like, I would not be able to do this by myself, and having people that are capable, experienced in making this kind of stuff work, that's the real Achilles heel of the whole operation. That's I'd say is our best chance of doing anything with Wexbury, because as I said, even at the moment, Ireland is lovely, but to sustain a proper company, pay wages, pay myself, there's just not the population volume there. So that was never on the cards, and it took me a while to realize that.
And I love the fact that you haven't pigeonholed yourself in a sense of just going after the flavored vodka. So you were able to pivot. You came over to America, you did your research, and you were able to create the strawberries and cream liqueur, which is so different. I can't wait to try that. I love liqueurs, cream liqueurs, and I'm looking forward to when you get out to America. So it's great that you're able to change. You haven't locked yourself into that exact product. You still have it, but you can chop and change when it comes to the market. You're still holding on to the ethos, and what Wexford represents is the fresh quality.
But that's what I'm like. Yes, look, I've seen it, as I'm sure you have before, on your side. It's the a lot of people, they get into the industry and they get a product going and they get potential investment, or they put a lot of their own money behind it. And even if they get to America, they don't put the time and effort in to go and promote it. It ends up being a dead duck. And when that momentum falls, it's so hard to start building anything back up again, because it's all when it's an uphill trajectory from the bottom, you can have a good sales story, but if you get out there and it doesn't work, by God, and it's it's just that's the difference. Is, I suppose, that like, I'll be moving to Savannah, Georgia, full time to go do this, where a lot of guys, let's say, might be in my industry, they're 60 years old, they're at home, they have kids, they have a mortgage, and their priorities, as I said, maybe have God knows, any sort of an excuse why they have to be at home. You know, I don't operate like that. If it needs to happen, it has to happen, and it always does happen. And I'll be the person that will ultimately be responsible for it at the end of the day. So I'll be on the ground making the sales, shaking hands, and those guys actually just can't handle that. They don't like to meet someone who is the owner of the company, who comes to them to speak to them, to ask for their help getting going in America. That's like the explosion kind of compound interest thing that I noticed when I was over there. By the time I settle in and I start telling our story and waving the accent around the place, maybe like we can knock a right bit of crack out of this, and I think it's going to be a great story to follow. Whatever it's going to be, it won't be boring. That's the trick. Whether all the good things and the bad things, it won't be boring.
Amazing. The American market is there to be grabbed across Europe, Australia, man. It's there for you to be able to represent Wexford, and the quality and the product that you're putting out is going to speak for itself. So, but you're right. You need boots on the ground. You need people knocking on the bars. You need to be doing shots with the owners of the bars and keep the momentum high. And no better man to represent the brand. I'm sure you're gonna do very, very well when you get out to Savannah, Georgia here. So it's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and hopefully I'll be able to head down and we'll have a pinter and we'll have a shot down there as well.
Some a long weekend there, sipping a nice tea out in Savannah now wouldn't be too bad, would it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then we can go into the bars representing Wexbury Spirits. I know I'm a dub. I know I'm a dub, but I could be from Wexford for a couple of days. So we can make it work. We can make it work. But
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I'm excited for you, man. Obstacles for yourself, okay? You've obviously being an entrepreneur, it may look all rainbows and sparkles and great, like he's thriving, success. Obstacles get in the way every single day. There's always a fire of some sort to put out. What? Because you're in the booze industry as well, so I can only imagine the regulations and everything that goes involved with it. What are the biggest obstacles that you've come across?
Funny, I had this chat with another guy who, like you were saying at the beginning of the podcast, that people come to you looking for business advice and whatever, and like I'm very strict with that. Like I'd never get involved in people's businesses unless I was asked. And I was basically telling me a business idea and whatever, and I was like, "There's not enough problems." I was like, getting into the booze game is so great in so many ways because there's so much pain in the ass between red tape, convincing the right people in revenue, getting a business. Imagine me going to the revenue at 20 years old, 21 years old, telling them I was starting a vodka company. They laughed. It took 3 goes before they actually gave me a company to do what I wanted to do, because they were like, this just isn't possible. Someone's taking the piss. Like, it's just not happening. And even going through all that, like, it's actually good, because if this was a company where I was like, I don't know, buttering crackers and selling them on the street, the barriers to entry are so low that if you start doing really well, someone automatically is just going to like copy and set up down around the corner. And I think that all the problems that I've had so far are actually like brand assets as far as I'm concerned, because now all the barriers to entry of actually getting in and getting sorted, getting your licenses, getting your insurances, huge. That's what actually makes what we do valuable, and that's what I suppose keeps the red tape up. That, like, I'm sure there's loads of people who thought of putting strawberries into alcohol and trying to do the extra strawberry thing, or even put a different spin on it. But the amount of people who are actually able to persist through that red tape is non-existent. Yeah. And on top of me being straight out of college and no experience in the industry, everyone was like, this chap hasn't a hole. That's what I'd say to people is, no matter what industry you're getting into, like food in particular, I suppose, all the red tape is good. And actually, the more you can get, the better. Yeah. Because that's what's going to make what you do valuable.
It's funny. It's kind of, the naivety was kind of a blessing in a sense as well, because if you had known the shit you'd have to go through, you probably was like, fuck it, I couldn't be arsed doing this, But it's the fact is, it's like, okay, here's another challenge. Jump over that hurdle, and another one. Jump over that one. So you just have to keep the momentum going and persevere. And now that's what a lot of people falter before they even really get going, is this red tape, and they don't want to persist, and they just get blocked. One barrier is enough to stop them.
They'll do all the research and then convince themselves why there's too much work in it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it,
100%. Our audience, everyone listens to podcasts for self-improvement at the end of the day, hearing a good story and self-improvement. And Mark, you mentioned a few times, and we were chatting about earlier, that the lessons you've learned. What does self-improvement mean to yourself, and how do you kind of practice it on a daily basis?
as much as self-improvement, right? I think you can kind of pair it back to the word success and how anyone frames themselves, because I think it's a very dangerous game to get into. Oh, I'm starting a vodka company, and whether it's works or it doesn't, you're a success or you're not. For me, success is something that's a personal metric. No matter who thinks what of me, is something that every day I wake up, as long as I can look at myself in the mirror and say that I tried my best, that's the only metric that matters, and that's my personal metric for what I consider for me to be successful. So for me, it's taken years to understand, but it's so basic, it's scary. It's the likes of getting enough sleep at night, the likes of eating properly. It's the likes of, I'll actually go as far as saying, if anyone is in the beginning of their journey and they're going through this whole process, it's actually when the big problems come after you, or you believe they're big problems. And I think we had a discussion about this at the start of all the niggly bits that try and halter you and hold you back on your journey. It's developing a leather skin for those scenarios as early as possible. So no matter what legal letter comes in the door, no matter what angry phone call or disgruntled customer you get, that you're able to brush it off and get on with your life in like, I mean, milliseconds. Because if you're not able to tolerate that kind of level of stuff, it'll build on you and it'll depress you and it'll bury you and it'll just eat and eat and eat away. It'll be death by 1,000 cuts, and that's fine as long as you know when the cuts come that that's all good. You're minding yourself. You're keeping yourself happy, positive, well fed, well slept. Because when those other things slip on top of the other bits that are guaranteed, not even like, oh, you might get them, guaranteed to hit you,
Yeah.
that's when you're really going to hit the floor and just be like, I want to give up. It's all a disaster. The whole giving up mentality, like that happened to me once. And I can tell you it lasted 20 minutes before I gave myself a kick in the hole. And I was like, yeah, no, there is no plan B. This is going to work. Do you get me?
Yeah. Okay.
That's the mentality that I think that, like, if you want self-care, it's actually understanding and acknowledging that there's going to be a guarantee of so much shit coming at you. Excuse the language. All about how well you can handle it as an individual and not let it affect the rest of your life, because you're just not up for it then. It's a muscle you need to build, it's a leather skin you need to develop, but everything is worth it, because it's just what it stands to me now. Nothing's a problem. There's people with real problems in the world, and whatever goes on in the vodka company is never an actual.
It's a great point. And before this conversation, you were just at the gym, so looking after yourself is a really, really important
Yeah, I
aspect.
look
From,
like it
as
too.
you
Yeah,
said,
with me
sleep.
fucking hat backwards, and I was
You
like, I
do?
literally sat straight in from the gym. So yeah, I'm looking real professional here today.
No, you're looking well, man. Saying basically said, look after yourself, get the right sleep, eat the right foods, try and put yourself in a position that when the shit does hit the fan, you're able to withstand it. And you don't get absolutely floored. And most people will give up because of that. They haven't looked after themselves. I have a few friends, and I'm sure you do as well, a few mates that are entrepreneurs that didn't really look after themselves as much. And then when something happened, they were like, couldn't be arsed anymore. So it is very important for people to be looking after themselves.
It's a game of persistence and full stop. Persistence, 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 persistence. And you only lose when you give up.
Yeah.
And there's always a way. There's always a way of bringing it forward, like getting around the problems. Nothing, as I said, a loved one getting sick, that's a problem.
Mm.
You're getting a letter from the revenue for a late VAT return. It's an issue, but it's not a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't, if you're getting sweated up over little bits like that, even the big bits.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, again, going to the gym. The more you exercise the muscle, the more you're actually, no matter what gets thrown at you, you can just turn around and keep the rail on the track. Yeah, be happy about it, because life's too short now to be negative and sucked into it. So I suppose it's the big lesson I think I learned there, probably a little bit late, even in the last, let's say, few weeks, is actually just enjoy it, because I've already put in the hard work. The hard yards in my mind are done. Everything else is possible and easy. It was actually the learning process of getting to here was the real hard work. And after that, like, I have all the bits of the jigsaw on the table. It's a case of not if they're going together, it's only when, in my mind. So it's yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's been a great journey. I've been very lucky and very fortunate, and I intend on making the most of the opportunities afforded to me.
100%, Mark. That's Look, I have so many more questions, but you basically answered like three questions there for me with in the sense of a piece of advice for a future entrepreneur. You've got a great story and the outlook is really, really inspiring as well. It's kind of pushing me to get like, I wouldn't mind getting into the booze industry now, that'd be great. Like just persevere. And I love the if you take the small things and you make the small things big, they're got like you're just gonna get floored after a while. So like I have a lot of time for that kind of mentality, and it takes a while to build up, but it's a muscle that you have to work on. That very rarely people are born with it, but you have to kind of fine tune it and just get used to it and just kind of build on it as well. So I think we're going to start wrapping up now, to be honest with you, because that's a great way to finish it off. There's a lot of people doing great work out there in the food and beverage world, right? Who do you think and who are you looking at that is doing a fantastic job?
I am a big fan of Good Brew coffee. I love the angles they've taken. I was fortunate enough to be on the FoodWorks program with the guys, Dee and Jeff, and just understanding, I suppose, the business model behind it. I find it really interesting, but also how they've branded what they've done, and particularly how well they've done their brand extension into different like flavors. And like I knew all the hardship in the background of like getting their like bottling equipment or their canning equipment, and then the regulation, and then the just a whole lot of headache. And to see how they're after growing and bringing that on, like I think they're going places. Like, they're people with a lot of determination, and I've a lot of time for their approach. Even their online presence is like really what I think is going to work in this kind of modern day and age. So I'm a big fan of them, and I think it's like vegan and it's like vitamins and stuff like. There's everything great about it, but their branding in particular and how they've gone about it, I'm a huge fan of. Yeah,
Fantastic. Yeah, I've seen I got a lot of good stuff online on LinkedIn and everything about Good Brew. So I look forward to seeing them really take off now over the next couple of years. And hopefully we'll get him onto the podcast and he'll say the same about yourself, eh?
God knows, I just have great time for the guys. And most importantly, like I think it's the biggest difference between entrepreneurs and even people who've inherited businesses or bought businesses
Yeah.
is like they're all dead sound. And when you like, it's so rare in our game to have relatability with people because of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And when you meet people that have just been through the same, if not worse than you, some of the times, and you can sit down and chat about it and then talk about the big picture, and you're not getting, I suppose, cross eyes back at you like, who's this nutcase? Everyone is just so supportive, and I think it's one of the biggest rewards of being an entrepreneur, aside from, again, you're thinking about the big payday potentially at the end, but it's actually when you do something interesting, other interesting people want to know about you, be a part of you, get to know you. And I think that journey of going to meet all these different interesting people has been the most enjoyable thing about the whole process, and learning about them, learning how to, I said, deal with the right ones and how to move on the wrong ones. And I think as a life process, I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to me is starting to sell strawberries when I was 13 years old. That's 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 where we're at. That's where we're all at the moment, and sure, God knows where it'll end up. But
Amazing.
I've every faith that it's going to be better than I can imagine. So
That's a great way to end it, man. From a 13-year-old selling orgasmic strawberries on the side of the road in Wexford to a Wexbury Spirit empire that's growing potentially across the states and across China and everywhere else across the world. So can't wait to see the rest of it, man. I'll be keeping tabs on you and checking in every so often. But man, a great story. Really enjoyed it, and I hope everyone did as well. So
thanks a million, dude. Really appreciate it. Best of luck with the podcast. It's brilliant.
appreciate it. Where can everyone find a bit about more about Wexbury Spirits?
Straight, just head to our Instagram. Instagram's where it's at. Yeah, and we do a good bit on LinkedIn. We're trying to do a bit more, but yeah, Instagram at Wexbury Spirits. Look us up.
Class. Love it, man. And we'll tag you guys below as well. So, Mark, pleasure, and chat to you again real soon. All right.
100%, man. Good luck.
Cheers. Chat to you soon. Now that was a great chat. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Mark, for such a young lad, has a wealth of knowledge, and I'm genuinely excited to see where his journey takes him. I've got a good feeling we'll be hearing a lot more about Mark and Wexbury Spirits as they grow into a global brand. If you enjoyed this episode, let me know in the comments. Your feedback is always welcome. And if you think someone else would enjoy hearing Mark's story and learning about his journey, please share this episode with them. Don't forget to check out Wexbury Spirits, and if you spot them on the shelves, be sure to grab a bottle and support local. Catch you all in the next episode of the Savor Success podcast, where I'll continue to interview some of the world's best and brightest food entrepreneurs. But until next time, keep savoring success.